Okay, let's go across to Ruchi now. We've got a big exclusive lined up for you this afternoon. I'm going to take it across to Ruchi to share with us all the details. The government is working on a broader policy for privatization, and sources have told us that talks are underway for formation of a holding company for PSUs. Ruchi, tell us what this is all about.
Abha, we're given to understand that the proposal for the formation of a holding company for PSUs is back on the table. Back in 2017-2018, we had seen the government talking about whether a holding company for public sector enterprises or perhaps for banks can be put in place. And at that time, the idea was booted out. However, we are given to understand that the idea is back on the table. In fact, the Department of Economic Affairs is already in talks with DIPAM regarding the formation of a holding company for PSUs. We're given to understand sectors such as defense, finance, energy would be key strategic sectors that will make a part of this holding company. While this idea and discussion is still at a nascent stage and will need the blessings of the Prime Minister's office, we're given to understand that, as I said, Economic Affairs Department is in talks with DIPAM regarding this proposal. As I said, the Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, DIPAM, has a mammoth task of being able to meet close to 2.1 lakh crore rupees in terms of their disinvestment target for this year. However, COVID-19 has put a spanner at works. And even if the government is not able to meet their target this time around, can a pipeline of some sort be created so that at least the minimum public shareholding norms can be met for the companies where the valuations are good? There are two rationale for this. One, of course, is the fact that allow PSU banks to be a part of it, because then PSU banks can also be a roadmap for the privatization of PSU banks can also be done. The second idea, of course, is the fact that once this proposal gets started, gets put in motion, then the companies where the valuations are good, for example, the defense companies like HAL and BEL, on account of the several reforms that the government has announced in the last couple of months, has seen a spike in the valuation. So instead of going to the market every single time and going in for an OFS, the idea is to have a holding company. The government can park some bit of their shares in this holding company, and then the holding company the government can, as I said, can prepare a roadmap. Of course, this will need the blessings of the market regulator, SEBI, as well. The holding company is going to be along the lines of SUUTI, is what we are given to understand so far. The holding company will be consisting of an independent board as well that will be deciding the way forward in terms of selling the stake over a period of time. In fact, joining us on ET now to talk about and give us a better sense of this is Mr. Prithvi Haldia as well. Mr. Haldia, thanks for joining in. This is Ruchi, Bhatia. We're given to understand that the holding company structure could be put back in place for public sector enterprises, as well as PSU banks could also be put in place for that. I want to understand from you, in terms of a way forward, how will this really work, and how will a PSU holding company be very different from an ETF that we have in the market so far?
Hi, Ruchi. First of all, this is not a nascent idea. We have been discussing the idea of a holding company for ages. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Carry on.
Yeah. So I'm saying that this is not a nascent idea. The idea of a holding company has been discussed for several years. And so it's a very welcome move in case it is being brought on the table again, because we have seen, but the objective of a holding company should not just be to meet the 25% public shareholding norm. I think we should look at a bigger objective, which is a better governance. In case the ownership passes on to an independent board, and this board has to be truly independent of the holding company. Again, government nominees, retired, there are bureaucrats, politicians sitting there, then they will be to the line of the government. We should have a truly independent board of experts, public people, public figures, high integrity, with knowledge of the markets. So our independent board would then lead to better governance, because this holding company would also then exercise powers over the appointment of board members or overseeing the boards of the various companies whose shares it is holding. So I think from that perspective, it can the holding company, obviously we should not be talking of only one holding company. There can be several holding companies, sector-wide or by nature of their strategic role in the economy. I would definitely not like the SUUTI kind of a model, because SUUTI was entirely managed by the government. It is a government-appointed board and chairman. As I said just now, it's a totally independent board, which would be a great idea. In the process, of course, the 25% minimum public shareholding norm will also be met. As we all know right now, PSUs are particularly the fiefdoms of the respective ministries, and a lot of divestment delays that have taken place because a lot of ministries do not want greater public shareholding, greater transparency, and things of that sort. Once the shareholding is removed from the control of the respective ministries into a holding company, we would then have much wiser decision-making taking place at the holding company level, rather than getting stuck up with multiple ministries.
Sure, fair point, Mr. Haldia. Just stay with us. Ruchi, if I could get in some more clarity, what is the government's eventual plan, if you have any inkling of it, on whether or not this holding company is going to be listed as a separate entity?
Yes, because a holding company should be listed, and that should have a 25% minimum public shareholding. And this holding company will basically then represent the interest of the several underlying companies under which the holding company has been formed. So the holding company has to be listed. Otherwise, how do you meet the 25% public shareholding norms? It is then saying that you create a company which will take all the decision of divestments. Then you holding company, a new organization is created which will look at divestments of various PSUs to meet the 25% public shareholding norm. And therefore, that's also not a bad idea, because then you are at least not getting involved with the respective ministries. This super body, which will take decisions on shareholding dilution, can then take appropriate calls on dilution of individual companies to meet the 25% norm. But I think we should look at a bigger picture, which will look at models like Temasek, Khazanah in Malaysia, Temasek in Singapore, even China. We should look at those kinds of structures which have brought about a lot of improvement in the valuations of these companies, and also greater faith in these companies by the market.
Right. Sure. Ruchi, would you have any clarity on whether there is a plan in place to list this holding company, like Mr. Prithvi Haldia as well is just reiterating that would be the most prudent option from a shareholder's perspective, as well as the entire PSU divestment process, if you have any inkling on the same, and if so, how soon could this really take place?
Absolutely right, Aisha. We're given to understand that even though the government is working with various options on the table in terms of what is going to be the real structure of this holding company, I'm given to understand that the end idea, of course, will be fundraising for the government. In fact, instead of going to the market every single time with an OFS, and that, of course, is a more time-consuming process, if you list this holding company, it is going to be much more easier. In fact, a source is also suggesting that if you have a holding company of about 12 to 15 odd companies, and good companies with good valuations, and of course companies in the defense sector as well as the banking sector, there is a possibility you can raise as much as 40,000 crore rupees in one go. And at a time when the government is anyway struggling with revenues, our privatization policy is already is in the works. The government's privatization process for BPCL and Air India has already been delayed. The idea is to have some sort of a holding body that can be put in place. Of course, this is going to be a long-term thing. It will not happen over the next 2 to 3 months. But the fact is that this idea was once booted out back in 2017-18, is back on the table for a reason, because the government needs more funds right now. The government needs more money, and which is of course going to be the end aim. The end aim will be to list these stocks to ensure that this helps in the dual objective of not just meeting the minimum public shareholding norms, but also get money for the government.
Okay, Ruchi, thanks much.